to support the activities in the central city, but without having to get through the cordons, etc. ourselves.
So what's the key, obviously search and rescue teams are doing their work, but what's the key task that you're focusing on in the wider community around that have been affected by the quake this morning?
Welfare of the community. So it's not only the central city, although a lot of people have been evacuated from there, but also surrounding areas as well, although the emphasis is on the search and rescue within the central city. The surrounding areas, particularly to the east of the city, have been affected by the lack of electricity in many cases, but also the liquefaction, more damage to houses. People are moving out, they're looking for safe places to go. So there's a lot of work going on at the moment to ensure that there is a short-term accommodation available for people who need that. Some of that is being provided elsewhere in the city, but there's also work being put in place to provide welfare centres outside of the city as well and surrounding districts, and also for those out-of-towners and perhaps some of those within Christchurch who have places they can go to outside the air bridge that's being established to move people out of the region to the North Island has been coordinated to some extent from the centre as well.
Now, we spoke a little earlier this morning, it's probably an hour and a half ago at least now, to the Civil Defence Minister, John Carter, and at that point he was telling us how there is more of an effort now to try and get information from some of the suburbs. Obviously the focus initially was on the city centre where it needed to be, but he accepted that there was a lack of information from some of the suburbs. What information are you now getting from some of these outlying areas?
There has been reconnaissance work going on since yesterday afternoon where there's clearly visible impact in those communities, and we're getting more detailed information now. Much of that at this stage is to be coordinated at within the Christchurch City's Emergency Operations Centre, but we're looking to ensure that that information is flowing smoothly to all of the agencies who need to know, particularly the social service agencies, so that they may well be putting, as occurred back in September, putting teams out into those communities in the very near future to get first-hand information from and support to those affected communities, affected households outside of the central business district. But that's where people still are, so that's where the emphasis of another stream of the response is going to increase significantly in that regard.
And do you get a sense that in those suburbs we're talking about damage to property, or are we also talking about injury and potentially fatalities in some of those further spread out areas?
No, the vast majority of that will be damage to property. If there had been any injuries, most of those would have sought support by now, because in those areas they're usually one or two story wood frame homes. The potential for injury is much lower than in the central business district, so it's unlikely to be significant injuries, but it's more social support for those people. Water is going to become an issue, potable water for those communities. There's going to be significant issues there for some time, and in some of them it was already still in some small areas an ongoing issue from the earlier event. So getting a good handle on what's happening in those areas, area by area in a systematic way, is going to be the way ahead over the next 24 hours.
And John, one of the images that was front and centre when this happened yesterday was the